Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, and London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys from Africa, you know we love the Big C tribe. We love them in Canada, the Big C. There's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful August 9th, 2018. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, yesterday I was trying to get together with you. I went to the hospital, and next thing you know, a knife fight broke out. And I ended up leaving out of there without a hip. They put some metal inside of me, so now I'm going to get caught every time I go to the airport.
So be careful of that lightning. Now, when they say they want to do a cavity surgery, you're really going to be nervous, Big C, because you took your belt off, you took your shoes off, but you say it might be the hip.
Well, Charlton, it's going to be beeping. And so, when you look at the angle of a hip,
yes,
it's actually the direction of a gun. So, here it is. I'm going to be armed and dangerous, and you know how easy it is for black people now in the airport to get drawn down on.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I told people you were in for a colonoscopy. I was kind of feeling sorry for you.
Hey, that might have felt better, Charlton, than what they did.
Well, I tell you what, it's all good. And that's what they call fake news. So I was giving out some fake news yesterday. It's a hip you had to rebuild. Hey, it's all fair in love and war. I do want to say today's segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. So, Big C, yesterday I was telling people that Big C was doing what most men should do, which is go get your colonoscopy, the same way women go get the mammograms. Don't wait until you don't feel good. Just go in there and get it done. So you're saying you went for a hip procedure? Is that what you're saying, Big C?
Yeah, Charlton, they took my bad hip and they said allegedly they gave me a good hip. But they won't. So I'm trying to figure this out. Somebody lied to me. They set me up. I'm sitting there. I thought I was at a hibachi grill the way they was winging knives around.
Yes, buddy. Now, a lot of athletes, especially you linemen, you're always in that three-point stance. There are a lot of guys. We just saw the NFL Hall of Fame inductions. You notice how a lot of guys don't walk as well, of course, as they did 20 and 30 years ago. And a lot of guys go in and get their knees replaced. They get a hip replaced. I think Trent Dilfer just had a knee replacement not long ago. He was out playing golf up in Lake Tahoe just a couple of weeks ago. And then you doing your thing with the hip. There's a lot of guys that go into that procedure. So for the men who've yet to do it, what can they expect? What was it like when you went in there and had that, if you don't mind sharing that, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I'm in there, and my anesthesiologist comes up to me.
Yes.
And he asked me what was I getting done. And I told him it was my hip.
Yeah.
He said, well, I had both of my knees redone.
Oh, really?
I said, you going to be able to stand long enough to get this done? So, I'm worried about him, and here it is, I'm getting cut up.
I tell you, well, it really is a teaching moment. I know you always talk about making sure that people are qualified to do what they do, whether it's coaching or whether it's playing. And if you could, when you think about, for me, when I did my procedure, mine was a colonoscopy, and every man should get it. In fact, women should get it too. And especially if you're African American, don't wait until the last few minutes where you're not feeling good. So I described, they count down to, they say count from 10 to 1. I got to about 6 or 7. And next thing you know, I was being awakened and saying, are you okay? Are you okay? But the procedure took me out.
In these procedures,
yeah,
they don't completely knock you out.
Oh, really?
That's the fearful part.
Really?
Because they have to maneuver you around, and so they don't need all that dead weight laying up there on the table.
Yes.
So they give you an epidural, just like a woman giving birth.
Yes.
And so you have to sit there and look at a guy with a knife in his hand, and your body's the one that can't move.
Yeah. So now you felt like you were in the movie Scarface with Al Pacino back in the day. Is that what you're trying to say, Big C?
well, now I know what some of those pigs that felt like that we were getting ready to barbecue.
Oh yeah. So now you know what the animals feel like. Now that you had that experience, are you becoming vegetarian, Big C?
Well, no. I just told them they could keep the scraps, Charlton. I would get my own when I got home. So I didn't need that soup bone, because normally, we use that as a ham bone making some beans. But
yes.
I said I would stay out of my own.
Well, you know how some mechanics, when you go and get your car repaired, and they tell you, oh yeah, I got my best guys working on it right now. They're really just sitting on top of the car. And you always ask if you can see the part they took off the car before they replaced it with a new piece. Oftentimes they'll say, oh, we don't have it. Say, what do you mean you don't have it? You just replaced the old catalytic converter with the new one. Can I see the old one? They say, oh, we already put that for recycle. Did they give you a copy of the old hip bone, or do they just tell you they put it in recycle? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Dalton, I knew outside the hospital there was a couple of big dogs, walking around. So, they have a tendency to want to gnaw on bones, and so I just steered away from them because I know they can also smell fresh meat.
Yep, that's true too, Big C. I just think that's funny. I think you told me about I asked you how you like your barbecue, and you talked about the BTUs at 30. I mean, something about BTUs. All I know is I want a medium.
That's my steak.
Okay, that's your steak.
Yeah.
So they had no barbecue. There's no Big C barbecue. I just want to make sure there's no Big C body parts walking around in restaurants down south. I just want to make sure of that, Big C.
Well, I guess you'd have to be in love with some bone marrow, because which is a very tasty thing. I know the beef bone marrow. I like to use that on toast.
Yes.
But I'm hoping that somebody didn't utilize mine.
Well, I'm sure that's all fair and love and war, Big C. Well, I'm glad you're better, and it's always good to see. And this is for a lot of men, especially when you watch a lot of the athletes. And you tell me how you see a lot of them still every now and then, and guys just limping along, or they're with their cane, they're having body parts replaced. And it just shows how great medicine is. You can have a surgery done where you're somewhat awake during that process. I think for men who are afraid about having work done, what would you say to them about why put it off? I've heard other people saying they felt so much better after they had a knee replacement or some type of joint replacement. Why? What is the reason that people put it off for so long, Big C? Is it fear, and there's really no reason to be afraid? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I'm one of those. I was told 15 years ago that the hip needed to be replaced.
Oh, really?
But, I wanted to be that soldier to go out there and persevere and say, I can withstand this. But as time goes, it just wears down more and more. It's like erosion in a riverbed.
Yeah.
Where things just keep washing away. And the joint was at that point when you walked that you could feel the tissue protrude in the front.
Oh, really?
Because the socket was gone. And so, I'm on a walker now, and hopefully I'll be the fastest walker on my street, coming up this week.
Yeah. So now you can be in the Invictus games that Prince Harry put together. That's what you're trying to say. They should actually pay homage to the people who go through those difficult games. I know I was talking to a gentleman here in Northern California. He actually runs games for young kids. I mean, from 8 to 13 that have had some type of an injury. And he'll take them out to golf courses, and sometimes they'll shoot basketball, but they'll be in a wheelchair. But he lets them know that you can be athletic anyway. When you watch something like the Invictus game that you're always talking about, with that Prince Harry put together, you can kind of see firsthand some of those athletes that are out there with the wheelchair. It doesn't mean that you can't be active. How important is that message now, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Dalton, I'm looking at it from this perspective. I use steel shafts on my golf clubs.
Yeah.
All I got to do is attach a magnet to it now, and I don't need a bag. I just hook it to my leg.
So, yeah. Well, Tiger with his back fusion, and then Big C with his hip surgery, I guess all's fair in love and war. So I'm glad you're doing better, Big C. Good to see you back in the swing of things. Funny thing, one more thing I want you to give as an educational moment, because there's a lot of men who are afraid. You said you put yours off 15 years. You did it on one day, and then you're back in the swing of things, Big C. 1 day absent. Is that what it was?
Well, yesterday we went into the hospital at 5:45 a.m. Charlton. We dilly-dallied around. A couple of cute nurses walked in there, and I really didn't want to go to sleep at that point because I knew I was going to be missing out on a lot.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why they kept me awake, because I was mesmerized with all those pretty faces.
Yeah. Well,
and by 9 o'clock, I was out of the operating procedure, Charlton.
Wow.
And I was awake.
That's incredible.
That was the amazing part of it. And at 3 o'clock, I was up walking and getting ready to come home.
That is absolutely amazing. The magic of medical science, and it's as men of color, oftentimes we know too many people who want to tough it out. or sometimes they want to pray it out. They want to pray to God that things are going to heal. But you go to the medical doctors, the ones that know what they're doing, and they can make life a lot better just by going by their procedures. And speaking of procedures, and we know that the NFL is back, and I'm sure you're happy with that. But I was watching a program earlier today. It was on Alabama football, of all places. And I didn't see you on the plane, but I know Nick Saban was flying around some of his top players in a private plane. Now, I contrast that to WNBA players who fly commercial. They don't have private planes, WNBA. There was a team that was late to Las Vegas, and they couldn't play a game because they couldn't get out on time. Well, how does Nick Saban have a private plane for college kids when most people have to fly around and coach? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, he has a Mercedes dealership, Charlton. He has a lake. And a private plane is no big deal.
Yeah.
You think about most major college programs, Charlton. These coaches have a private jet access.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's a booster or something along that lines they're providing in Charlton, they don't waste. They don't go through the metal detectors at the airport, Charlton. They're at a private airport getting to where they need to be.
Yeah, that's
but
incredible.
That lets you know how big the college athletics has gotten, professional athletics, Charlton.
Yeah.
You talked about the WNBA team from Las Vegas.
Yes.
Where they had a 23-hour delay.
Yeah.
They arrived in the town a half hour before the normal tip-off of the game.
Yeah.
They decided that they would just forfeit the game. And yet they got so much backlash from the media that, you know, they had forfeited the game because they were tired. These ladies were not given the same autonomy as everyone else, saying, well, you know, this is unreal to expect them to play a game, and they landed at the airport a half hour before tip-off.
Yeah. And when you think about that, jet lag is real. It affects a lot of people. Most people don't have to get on an airplane, be held up 23 hours, and then by the time you get off, you got to go start a game where it's going to be a 2 or 3 hour stretch and then perform at a peak level without some type of injury. So I know that just seeing the guys at Alabama, I'm sure all the coaches have that for every conference, but when I saw that, I thought that was pretty miraculous. Nick Saban was doing an interview. It wasn't Air Force One, so it was not that elaborate of a plane, but it was a private jet, and some of his college players were in the back sleeping in it. So that shows you the world of the haves and the have-nots. So I want to congratulate Nick Saban for having somebody give him a plane. I'm sure he's worked really hard with that free labor down south to get those jet engines up in the air. Big C, your thoughts what free labor can buy?
Well, Charlton, it's amazing when you don't have a note to make every month.
Yeah.
You know, you just get in and ride. And like I said, the luxury of having that, you know, it's no wonder why the elite programs stay on top.
Yeah.
I imagine if you look at all top 10 programs, or even lower in the country, Charlton, is that their coaches have access to a private jet.
Yeah.
That they can get to where they need to be in a couple of hours' notice, Charlton.
Yeah.
If there's a hot recruit they need to go see, they can go see it. They don't have to have the secretary book a reservation and, you know, try to get to the airport and, you know, try to find a place to park.
Yeah.
You know, the secretary drop them off at the plane. and they're on their way.
Yeah.
And there's a car to pick them up, Charlton, when they land. When you don't have to go through the security of an airport, and we all see how daunting that can be these days, and especially I'm joining that crew that will be scanned. Actually, I got to have a little ID card saying, hey, I'm potent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, that there's metal here.
Yeah.
But, you know, these coaches, I guess you could say that they've earned these opportunities, Charlton, because the amount of money that's out there in college athletics.
Yeah.
And we still haven't seen Urban Meyer be fired.
No.
But, you know, this lets you know what the money means to the universities.
You know, I think that's so powerful. That's why for every sport, I mean, I love doing Big C Sports, but as I was talking to other people in the media also, if you're a sports program or if you're a station, TV or radio, and you don't have some form of a sports program, you really are throwing money away. Because how many teachers that we say get an education, and of course we all need that, but how many top educators at any university, whether it's Harvard or whether it's the local junior college in New Mexico, how many fly around on private jets? They just don't. You could be the top administration at Cal Berkeley or USC or Michigan, and they don't fly around in their own private jet. Now, maybe they'll take the private jet of the president of the university, but for someone to go around and recruit free labor, and I got to bring this point up. I remember the first time I was flown to a Super Bowl, it was by NBC Sports back in 1999. It was the Packers and the Broncos down in San Diego. I remember flying out of Oakland into San Diego, and I thought, what a great world. And I was so unaccustomed to it, they had a sign and a driver at the end, when we got to the airport in San Diego, and it said NBC Sports. So I just got on the line with NBC Sports. They took it to the stadium. Well, getting out of the airport, leaving back from San Diego to Northern California, I was on commercial. We had to wait for all the private jets that were lined up on the runways. So all the people who own NFL teams and own corporations, they flew them out first. I had to wait about another 40 minutes on the runway, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we've been through those things before. Back in my broadcasting days, if we had a short turnaround between games, it was nothing for the company to lease a couple of private jets and fly the main part of the crew there, because you could always have a production crew in any city.
Yeah.
But you needed to fly the talent and some of the production staff out in a hurry. So, when you had less than 24 hours to get to your next game, that was very common to do.
Yeah.
Not like the young ladies there in Las Vegas who could not make it to their basketball game.
Isn't that something?
Because when you look at the amount of money that's put forth towards the broadcast, not just putting the broadcast together, Charlton, and all the staff, but all the sponsors and everything that goes on within the stadium and getting that game on air.
Yeah.
Money is secondary compared to what they have to do.
Yep. Well, thinking of money, and while we say, as we're growing our Big C Sports platform, when I look at even the Pac-12 conference this year, they signed a new media package. And, of course, their executives get to fly around. Either they're going to fly private planes. I know the teams fly private planes, whether it's Washington or USC, et cetera, UCLA, Oregon. They're on their private planes, too, or what they call chartered planes. And still, WNBA have to take the regular flight like everybody else. But I look at their package that the Pac-12 signed. Now, it didn't compare to you good old boys down south with the SEC, but they've just signed a new package this year, and it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars with their broadcast rights, with just a couple of networks, 3 networks overall. I'm not going to broadcast for those networks, but I'm saying that's the kind of money that's in sports. Now, these networks are getting paid by corporate sponsors, and there's those corporations that fly those private planes. So even with that, where the colleges, Big C, for the men are being treated better than the women who have professional contracts. We talk about Title IX. I think they may get treated better when they play college sports at the D1 level than even when you play WNBA basketball, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charlton, we've looked at the media and its representation of the WNBA, how it does not seem to get the same accolades. Even though it's great, talented young ladies who are playing in that league, fundamentally sound, who go out and perform at the top level every night that they're in a game. But they're not respected by mainstream media.
No.
That's the reason why we don't see their games on a regular basis. It's like the NBA schedule came out yesterday. The WNBA season is going on.
Yeah.
And yet the NBA schedule had more prestige than the WNBA schedule that's being played now. It's almost like an afterthought.
Yeah.
That these ladies are playing, and they're revving up for these men to start playing in October and November.
Yeah. In fact, I was running down some of the schedules for the NBA, and actually the Lakers are going to be on TV now a lot more than they were in the past 5 years probably. When you think about Kobe Bryant, his final season there, you can see the Lakers on network TV a lot. But oftentimes, when he left, you didn't see them on, too much. And just for some of the WNBA games, when the Mystics and the Mercury had a game, and it was 103-98, the Mystics over the Mercury, and that game was Tuesday. Now, we look at the Sparks, 82-81 over the Liberty. That was yesterday. That's the final. The Suns over the Wings, 101-92, another final yesterday. I look at the Storm. They lost to the Mystics, 100-77. That was yesterday. And then we have the Sparks and the Dream playing today, as well as the Lynx and the Aces. So a lot of teams, they're not going to get the same publicity. We'll try to give them as much as we can when it comes to Big C Sports. But there's really not a big national push, especially when it comes to the money side of the thing. So we hope that hopefully a lot of the women who are out there play just as hard as the men, In fact, I met a lady that played in Greece just a couple of days ago. I met another one that played over in Europe today that played WNBA basketball. They are so talented. They have the same kind of game that they have at the college level, and some of the women that can go on to the next level can beat some of the men. I'm not saying the women teams can beat the male teams, but one-on-one, there's a lot of players that could hold their own in maybe a pickup game, Big C. I'm not even being flippant about that, but they just don't get the same publicity, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, if you took the dunk out of the game and not allow the men to shoot inside the key, these games would be a lot closer than what people suspect that they would be.
Yeah.
Because just the talent level of these young ladies that are playing is tremendous. Their skills are honed just as well as any man. They just don't have the leaping ability that the men have. So if you took that game outside, it would be a lot closer game than what people would think.
Yeah, I think that's the case, too. And I just want to get your thoughts because I couldn't hear you yesterday when you were doing – I reached out to you, but I thought you had a colonoscopy, and I was wondering if you're okay. If you've never been through that before. I meet so many men that are so nervous about that procedure, but you don't even notice it. You're not even awake for the most part the way you are having a hip procedure. So I just want to get your thoughts. The NBA schedule came out. There's some good games coming out, especially on the Christmas. But any games that you think would be must-see TV? I know the Lakers playing the Warriors on Christmas Day. That's definitely must-see TV for anyone in the NBA universe. Big C, anything on your mind?
Well, I guess they took Cleveland off that Christmas Day.
I noticed.
With Cleveland and Golden State.
I was looking forward to it.
When you look at the NBA, it's so far out there.
Yeah.
As far as the league is concerned and the scheduling, I mean, we got to get through football first. We got to get through the World Series.
Yeah.
I mean, when I look at the NBA has such a plethora of games. It's like watching the baseball season, Chubbs.
Yeah.
You got 162 games to get through in baseball. NBA, you got 82 games to get through.
Yeah.
So when you sit there and say does one game stand out, the final game in the finals.
Yeah, it always does. That always matters. But if you look at what's happening this holiday season, and I hope everyone will have a very merry holiday season, very merry Christmas, etc. Tiger Woods and Phil doing the Thanksgiving weekend, that's a celebration for the country. You know, Thanksgiving, everybody gets together, family and friends, eats lots of gluttonous food, Big C, obviously. I don't know if you've changed your desire to have the rib bone or the hip bone part of the steak anymore now that you kind of see how some of those cows feel. But we have Tiger and Phil on Thanksgiving weekend. We have the Lakers, and we have Golden State on Christmas weekend. But also challenging with Tiger and Phil, it's always been Thanksgiving Day, the football games. Usually always you could find Detroit. You could always find Cowboys. You know, last year was the Rams and Cowboys. Detroit's always playing. I think that Tiger Phil thing for the golf universe, they kind of balance it out now to get some people looking at golf and not just football all day. But the Lakers and having them with Golden State, the only bad part is a slant to the West Coast. There's no East Coast team that can challenge, or would that even matter, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charles, you got to look at the traditional college football games that are played. And college football is king during Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many games across the country that are traditional rivalries that people will be at those games. They'll be watching those games on TV. Yes, it's going to be somewhat intriguing with Tiger and Phil playing each other, but I don't think it'll take away the momentum of those college football games that people have looked forward to for decades.
Yeah, no, that's true too. So it's just a lot to be grateful for, a lot to be thankful for. And as we get into a few more scores, I just want to mention today in the Major League Baseball scene, you have the Dodgers and Colorado. Dodgers going in 63-52, and Colorado 60-54. There's a game that the Dodgers, now that they're away from home, kind of getting their bats back under them again after being dominated by Houston. And then you have Pittsburgh at San Francisco. The Pirates coming in at 59-56. San Francisco 57-58. A big game down in Anaheim with the Oakland A's arguably the hottest team in Major League Baseball right now, going in with a 68-47 record, taking on Trout, which might be the most dominant player in the American League, but they're only 58-58. I don't think they're having the season they thought they would have, but that's still good baseball lining up for the good old boys that love playing that game. Texas and New York playing today. The Yankees at home versus Texas, and then Boston at Toronto. Up north, across the, we can't call it across the pond, but clearly across the to another country. They haven't built a wall to keep them out. But Toronto, if anyone's ever seen that beautiful stadium right up there where the Argonauts used to play and where the Blue Jays play, I think it used to be called Skydome. That's a great place to play a baseball game, and it looks like they're having a good game right now going on with Boston. Your thoughts on still Boston? Boston looks like they're going to run away with it in the East. Going up to Toronto is always a difficult place to play, but just your thoughts on how dominant Boston has been. Big C, they're putting the whipping on everybody in baseball, it seems.
Well, Charlton, they've been a hot and consistent team all year. You know, last weekend they had a 4-game sweep of the Yankees, and they're just moving, Charlton. If they played 500 baseball, the rest of the season they're going to win 100 games.
Yeah.
But this is a team that seems to be on a mission. You know, that nobody's catching them, Charlton, in the East. Everybody's playing for that wild card position.
Yep.
You talked about the A's earlier. They've been the hottest team in baseball since the middle of June, where they're 37-11.
Yeah.
And their record dictates, you know, where they've been. But, you know, baseball is a game of streaks. And you can see how the A's have moved up. You see where the Bostons have been consistent all year long.
Yep.
And even the Yankees, you know, went into Chicago this weekend on a series and swept the Sox to try to stay in that pennant race.
Yeah, it's nice to see them selling out too for the White Sox, because a lot of people just don't tend to go to those games over there in the East or at the White Sox Stadium. Most people turn out for the Cubs, but it's good to see a packed house watching the White Sox play a game. The Yankees can tend to do that. Also, I just want to touch on Washington with a 6-3 win over Atlanta today. I know they're all competing to see who's going to win that division. And then you had Cleveland with a 5-4 win over Minnesota, and San Diego with an 8-4 win over Milwaukee. So a lot going on in the world of baseball. I still look at the Astros. The Astros play, they just threw out the first pitch, and they're playing Seattle. That game is in Houston. Seattle, they're dripping. I mean, they're dripping oil. I don't know if they drip oil or do they fish. Do they drip oil? If they drip oil in Seattle, it's from the fish grease, Big C, not from the cars. Does that make any sense, Big C?
Well, Charlton, I like mine fried. Well, a lot of people up there enjoy sushi. But,
they like the sushi.
Each his own when it comes down to fish. Somebody wants it healthy. I want mine unhealthy.
And somebody wants it unhealthy. So we always understand that. So Houston, again, I think definitely the team to beat in the world of baseball. We'll see. I hope the A's can find a way to get into the playoffs, showing some form of loyalty to the East Bay. Everybody's leaving them. Warriors going them back across the bay to San Francisco, and you look at Oakland going down to Las Vegas. The Oakland Athletics, it sure would be great baseball for the baseball fans if they could find a way to get into the playoffs. I do want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. And for every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports. Whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop soccer league, when you reach out to them, let them know that Big C sent you. And also, speaking of being big and reaching out to people, the NFL, the Cleveland Browns, not going to get into their score, but I'll just say at the end of the first, they had the lead over the Giants 7-3. I know it's just preseason, but there's something about seeing Baker Mayfield having the chance to play, and also Barkley out of Penn State having the chance to play. Just give me your thoughts on what we can expect going forward, whether they're going to be successful in this game or not. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, when you look at Cleveland's lineup, they loaded it up with a lot of quality veteran players this offseason. So they're a team to be reckoned with, and they still have some moves to be made.
Yeah.
You know, I still think that Tyrod Taylor will start the season because you want a veteran quarterback to go along with those veteran players.
Yes.
You know, they made some moves getting Landry and Hyde in on the offense. You know, so if they get off to a decent start, they'll be a very challenging team in the NFC.
Yeah.
But if they struggle, you have Baker Mayfield there, the number 1 overall pick, and you'll see him sooner than later.
Yeah, I think so. Do you think, not that this matters, because who cares about your feelings when they're paying you millions, but when I really appreciate the way Tyrod Taylor handled himself, because here's a guy that was in the playoffs last year with Buffalo, the first time in over a decade that the Bills went to the playoffs. I know they were pretty much handled by Jacksonville in that first round of the playoffs, but they hadn't been there in over a decade. So now that he's not there, he goes over to Cleveland. And the first thing that people are saying is the quarterback that could not beat Georgia or could not keep a lead over Georgia in the Rose Bowl in the National Championship playoffs. Is he going to take your job after you got the Buffalo Bills to the playoffs for the first time in over a decade, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you draft a guy number 1 overall to hopefully that he can be the face of the franchise.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of those faces over the decades not show up. They got a two-way mirror, when you're looking for them to perform. And they haven't, been the quarterback that people say. Your buddy Mel Kiper has had many franchise quarterbacks over the past couple of decades.
Yeah.
And they're now working at car wash.
Yeah. Was it Trubisky last year?
Baker Mayfield,
yeah.
When you look at him, he has a chip on his shoulder. Here's a guy that was a 2-time walk-on in college, Chelsea. He walked on at Texas Tech, won the job. He walked on at Oklahoma, won the job. This is the first time that he's had a job given to him. Can he have the same success when he doesn't have the pressure?
Yeah, and so I just want to get this one more angle, too, because Tyrod Taylor, obviously, we saw what happened when they took him out of the starting lineup and they went into San Diego, and they're back up to, I think, 5 interceptions in the first half, and then they bring Tyrod back. Think about
first half, he did that in the first quarter.
In the first quarter. And then, had they stuck with that, obviously Buffalo was not going to be in the playoffs. But in defense of Tyrod Taylor, he didn't get down on himself. He didn't even get down on his team. But you could say a lack of respect is one thing, but to come back and take your team to the playoffs for the first time in a decade. Now, I know he's African-American quarterback, so he's going to get blamed for everything that doesn't go well with that team. But now to go to Cleveland. So not only did you get Buffalo to the playoffs for the first time in a decade, you're being questioned about your job as a starter in the NFL, not as first-year starter. And whether it's Baker Mayfield or not, you notice that he doesn't get credit for taking Buffalo, and they hadn't been there in a decade, but there are players who haven't even been to the playoffs, and they're saying that they have to build a team around certain players. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look up and down the ledger in the NFL, half the quarterbacks who started last season had never been to the playoffs. So, that's status quo.
Yeah.
But there's more pressure put on a minority quarterback in the NFL than there is any other team. I mean, you look at Chicago, who moved up last year to take the first quarterback in the draft, in Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah.
Because everybody said that Deshaun Watson wasn't ready. Even though he set a rookie record for touchdown passes 19 in 7 games prior to him getting injured, Charlton also set the single-game rushing record.
Yep.
So, to say that a quarterback is not ready, that's because he doesn't look like you.
Yeah.
He doesn't fit the mold that you portray as far as quarterbacks. You look at quarterbacks who come into the NFL. You look at Cam Newton and you look at Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
Everybody said Andrew Luck was the next prodigal child.
Yeah.
Cam Newton has gone to the Super Bowl.
Sure has.
Andrew Luck hasn't took a snap in 28 games.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the future, and we don't know what his future is going to hold, Charlton. Cam Newton has been injured, but he's come back from injuries. Now the big hold your breath is Andrew Luck.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, Big C, you talked about that, and we wish Luck the best. Obviously, you just came out of surgery. He had surgery, and at the same time, he's going to have to bounce back. And just like you can't run the same way since you've had the hip. I mean, yours was just yesterday. Maybe in about a couple of weeks, you'll be a lot better than what you were going in there. And I just want to run down a couple of thoughts on some of these games tonight and some of these players, and just get your opinion. If you look at Houston versus Kansas City, you have second-year quarterbacks tonight. I think going forward, what will Kansas City be this year? Because Alex Smith has been so consistent, even though he couldn't win the big game, and they blame him. The same Alex Smith that didn't keep his job is the same guy that helped beat Tom Brady's New England Patriots team earlier in the season. I think it was 42-14 or 40-14. But give me your thoughts on Houston and Kansas City, 2 second-year quarterbacks tonight. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, Mahomes has the most to prove out of Texas Tech, but this is an Andy Reid MO. If you think about Andy Reid drafting young quarterbacks when he drafted Donovan McNabb, everybody booed him on that draft pick. We saw the history that they had, 5 NFC championship games and a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And Mahomes is a big-arm quarterback who came out of Texas Tech, Charlton, that can throw the ball all over the field. The biggest plus he has is just something that Baker Mayfield needs.
Yeah.
To be able to sit and learn the game for a year, Charlton, to see the pace of the NFL game. to learn behind a solid offensive coordinator. And that's what Mahomes had a chance to do, because you think about the Kansas City Chiefs, not only did they get rid of Alex Smith, but they got rid of the other two backup quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So everything in the quarterback position in Kansas City this year is going to be new. On the flip side, when you look at Houston needs a real backup.
Yeah.
You don't know if Deshaun Watson can stay healthy all year, but you can't have that debacle coming off the bench that you had last year.
Yeah.
Quarterback that was scared and couldn't perform. But, he's in the NFL, and you wonder why. Colin Kaepernick would have been a perfect fit as a backup.
Yep.
Another backup that would be good in that system, Charlton, is Teddy Bridgewater, who's with the New York Jets now, previous to the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
A lot similar athlete, but Houston needs to go out and bring a quality backup in for Deshaun Watson and forget about that savage that they had last year.
Yeah, that's always true too, Big C. Nice pun, nice choice of words. I want to swing you out to the West Coast, and these are two organizations. Even if they're not successful, they're always marquee names in the NFL. When you think about the Dallas Cowboys, San Francisco 49ers, this is not the field that you had at Candlestick Park over there at Hunters Point, where you had the fog that would roll across the top of the stadium. You could even smell some of I guess it was seagull smells. You could smell something at Candlestick Park. Maybe that's one of the reasons they moved out of there. But it was a great home field advantage with the swirling winds for the 49ers. If you look at Levi Stadium, it's a gorgeous stadium, maybe one of the best technology-wise stadiums out there in the NFL, but it does not have the same atmosphere that you had at Candlestick. It just does not. I know some people want to say that it does. Without Dak Prescott, where would the Dallas Cowboys be? He saved the franchise 2 years ago. Everybody else is really undependable around him. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that is true, Charlton. Everybody said, well, he had a down year last year. Well, you got to look at the Dallas Cowboys, Charlton. They had a down year starting from training camp. Ezekiel Elliott embattled in court proceedings, Charlton, over half of the season.
Half the season.
Was distracted from the organization. Dez Bryant wasn't the player he had been in the past, so he was undependable. You had Jason Witten. He was contemplating retirement all year, Charlton. It just didn't come up at the end of the season.
Yeah.
But, they had their defensive woes also, and a lot of their offensive linemen were hurt.
Yeah.
So Dak Prescott has been a saving face. If they didn't have him 2 years ago, where would the Dallas Cowboys be now? I know during that draft, Charlton, they were talking about trying to trade up and get Paxton Lynch, who ended up going to Denver late in that first round.
Yeah.
Has anybody seen Paxton Lynch in the past 2 years?
No.
Okay.
That's a good point. I think also for Dak Prescott, Cole Beasley, Terrence Williams, they have to emerge as primary targets. Will they miss Dez Bryant? I know Dez lost a step last year, and I think he had one of the better plays in the history of the Dallas Cowboys. The stars shine bright from deep in the night, deep in the heart of Texas. I'm learning that song, Big C. But now I realize that the NFL rules the way they are now. People look at that catch that he had in Green Bay at Lambeau Field. That was actually a touchdown. Caught the ball, took 4 steps, goes into the end zone, and the ball bobbles a little bit. But when he crossed the goal line, he was in the air. That was a touchdown, and that got taken away, and now he's gone. Will they miss him at all, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they can't miss what you didn't have.
Yeah.
And Dez Bryant was just a body out on the field last year. He wasn't a productive member of the offense. He had more negative plays than he had positive plays. And, you get to the point when you're not having a good season and you start blaming other people, it's time to retool. And you look at 2 years ago in Prescott's rookie year. Dez Bryant wasn't there the first half of the season.
No.
And Prescott, blossomed. And so was he the detractor to Prescott in his development in his sophomore season, Charlton? So you're really going to find out if he was really a cancer on the team or was it Prescott. I think it was Dez Bryant's time to go.
Yeah. He was more of a Michael Irvin, maybe vocal-wise. I know he did not have separation. Also, they don't have Witten. Witten retired also. He's going into the press box. So Dallas is a new team on offense. Defensively, they gave up a lot of points. I remember when the Rams smoked them last year on, I believe it was Thanksgiving Day, and people blame Prescott for having some picks. But sometimes you have guys that were giving up on balls, and he was the one getting the blame for that. But that's not always going to be the case where you're going to get favored with your African-American quarterbacks. We know that happens also. I want to get your thoughts on Nathan Peterman, A.J. McCarron, Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills going into the preseason without a quarterback when they had a guy that took them to the playoffs for over the first time in a decade. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, we know what Nathan Peterman can do, Charleston. He can throw 5 interceptions in a quarter. He did that last year against the Chargers.
How is he still there?
Bench Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
A.J. McCarron can never win the starting position in Cincinnati. Even though he was a starting quarterback in a playoff game, he couldn't put any points on the board one year when the Red Rifle was hurt.
Yeah.
Josh Allen, this big-arm quarterback that your buddy Mel Kiper was in love with out of Wyoming,
yep,
who couldn't even pass for 2,000 yards as a senior in college.
Yeah.
So you can't pass for 2,000 yards as a senior in college. That's a long stretch, from the NFL. And you're playing in Wyoming.
Yeah.
Not exactly the big boys, Charleston.
Yeah.
You weren't playing against defensive backs that's going to be playing on Sunday.
Yeah.
So, when you look at an organization that doesn't have anything, that's looking from the bottom of the barrel up,
yeah,
welcome to Buffalo.
Welcome to Buffalo, and obviously they got to get it done now because as it gets cold in Buffalo, you have quarterbacks that can't throw when it's warm in San Diego. Big C throwing 5 picks in the first quarter. Imagine when it's 35 degrees in Buffalo and a little bit windy. And you have the NFL, 3 injured quarterbacks last season making their debut tonight. Who has the most to improve? I mean, is it Andrew Luck? No matter how well or poorly he plays, he's going to get the benefit of the doubt. They're going to blame it on somebody else, the fact that he doesn't have a good offensive line. Or will it be Ryan Tannehill or Deshaun Watson? Who really has the most to prove? I think Watson may be the better of all 3 of them. But as far as who's going to get the blame for losing, he would also get the blame too, because I don't think they want to touch Luck. They want to kind of have the sympathy vote for him if things don't go well for the coach this year. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Luck is always going to get the benefit of the doubt. When you look at the combine when Andrew Luck came out of college, and you look at the statistics between he and Cam Newton, the measurables were the same. Other than the 40 where Cam blew him away,
yeah,
the measurables were the same. But he's always been thought of as the savior of the NFL.
Yeah.
And now that he hasn't played basically in 2 years, Charlton, the huge question mark is there. Can he throw the football? We know he can push it, but can he throw the football? Andrew Luck right now reminds me of a quarterback that not many people will remember. And he came out of UCLA. He was a number 1 draft pick. He ended up going to a Super Bowl. His name was Billy Kilmer.
Oh, yeah.
But he was this highly mobile quarterback when he came out of UCLA, and he was drafted by the 49ers, but he had an auto accident, which hindered his body's mobility.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking at with Andrew Luck right now. When you have this shoulder, that's the mobility of a quarterback.
Yeah.
And so his mobility has been hindered. And, we're going to really see how he reacts after getting hit. And his offensive line hasn't been the best.
No.
Since he's been in the NFL. You think about Andrew Luck. He's only had, since he's been in the NFL, 3 1,000-yard rushers.
Yeah.
That's not a lot.
No.
So that means he has to carry a lot of the burden, Charlton.
Yeah, and that game against Seattle, that's a 7 o'clock kickoff on the West Coast by Coach Frank Reich. I think Pete Carroll still has a lot to prove, too. Will Russell Wilson play a lot? Of course, their defense is not the same. There's no more of the Legion of Boom. It's almost like the Legion of Fish Grease now, Big C. It might be a little slippery getting some of the tackles that they had the last couple of seasons. But Seattle, under Pete Carroll, they're always well coached. And we'll see how they put pressure. If Luck's going to have the chance to go tonight, we'll see if they put a lot of pressure on them. I do want to cover just a couple of more games, too, in the NFL on the schedule tonight. We also have some games set for Friday. I look at Tennessee at Green Bay. 5 p.m. kickoff, so that's already underway. The quarterback competition between Green Bay and Brett Hundley and DeShone Kizer. Think about it, Green Bay having 2 African-American quarterbacks, Big C. And we know that Aaron Rodgers is going to be the star there, just like Brett Favre was from back in the day. But to have Kizer and Hundley, Notre Dame, UCLA, what team has 2 African-American quarterbacks? And they have the great opportunity to learn from probably a first ballot Hall of Famer and Rodgers. But, Jim Plunkett won 2 Super Bowls. Rodgers only won 1, so no guarantee he'll be first ballot. But your thoughts on Hundley and Kizer should they get on the field tonight, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we also see that same situation in San Diego. where you have Geno Smith and Cardale Jones backing up Phillip Rivers in San Diego. So you have two solid veteran quarterbacks with minority backups behind them that's trying to learn the game.
Yeah.
What you're going to do is try to get as many reps between Kaiser and Hundley in the preseason. We saw that Hundley struggled last year when he was thrust in when Rodgers had gotten hurt.
Yeah.
We saw Kaiser struggle all year long in Cleveland, as many quarterbacks will do, Charlton. And so that's why you don't know what you have when you draft a quarterback and you thrust him in as a starter in the NFL. He may play in a big-time program in college.
Yeah.
But the NFL is the big-time program.
Yeah.
And every week you don't get a weak opponent, regardless of the record.
Yeah.
You got pro players that you're going against every week.
Yeah.
And so this is a proving ground for those quarterbacks, Charlton, in the preseason. Do they deserve to be in the NFL?
Yeah, that's something we'll definitely find out. I want to take you across to the East Coast. What at one time could have been just a great football game, the Los Angeles Rams at the Baltimore Ravens, and the teams have been holding a joint practice this week, so you know sometimes you have little fisticuffs break out in practice, nothing too serious. But Ricky's quarterback for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, will he look better in Week 2 outing than he did in the Week 1 outing? You got to look at some of the nerves in the NFL Hall of Fame game. But I think going up against this Rams team that most likely has the firepower, if they make a choice to keep Darnold happy on defense, this is a team that could arguably get into the NFC Championship game just on looks alone with that defense. But we have Gurley in the backfield, could have been the MVP last year. Obviously, it didn't help when you don't go to the finals. But I think they have so much to prove in Baltimore. Will Flacco outshine Goff, even though they mainly played 2 or 3 series? And that defense is not the same, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's not. But when you look at Jackson, here's a guy that was thrust in with the third team offensive line. You got to put him with the number ones if you really want to see what he has. I mean, he's focused a lot on throwing to the right. So they need to get him to balance out his looks on the offense. When you look at the Rams, they probably have the best secondary in the NFC West.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a challenge who's ever playing quarterback for them. The thing with Baltimore, they don't have a stellar receiving core.
Yeah.
When you're looking at signing Dez Bryant, that meant that you didn't have a stellar receiving core.
Yep.
So that presents a little bit of problem for Baltimore.
Yeah, now again, you get Flacco, who's not the same guy he was when they beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl, and to bring in Dez Bryant. But in fairness to Bryant, maybe, just maybe, he has a chance to redeem himself. Or do you really think he's lost that much of a step, and that's why Jerry was willing to part ways with him? Attitude or not, you can't bring that same attitude that's yelling at your quarterback when he's a rookie quarterback in Prescott. You can't bring that attitude to Flacco. Is this a make or break? I mean, honestly speaking, is it a make or break season for Bryant at all? If he can't get along with a veteran guy who's won a Super Bowl, how can he get along with anyone, Big C? Is this a make or break season for Prescott? I mean, not Prescott, for Bryant.
Well, I look at Bryant. He may not even be in the NFL this year, Charles.
Really?
Because when he was offered that contract by Baltimore, the rest of the teams were watching.
Yeah.
He was egotistical when he was in Dallas, and he turned down guaranteed money going to Baltimore.
That's crazy.
That means to other teams, this is a problem. This guy thinks he's better than what he is.
Yeah.
We would rather not bring this situation into a young locker room and make young receivers disenchanted.
Yeah.
So I don't see him being picked up. One of the things you got to understand, Charlton, about an NFL veteran player, if you're a 4-year veteran and you're on the first game of the season, the roster for the first game of the season,
yeah,
your salary is guaranteed for the year. So I don't see anybody picking up Dez Bryant and having to pay him a guaranteed salary if he doesn't pan out.
Well, I tell you what, sometimes the players got to know they're so used to having it so good that even when they see their numbers go down, their ego doesn't go down with the numbers, Big C. I think a lot of players have fallen prey to that. But I would love to see the man play again. I still think he has a short game in him. Maybe he's not going to stretch the field 50 yards anymore, but over the middle, 10, 15-yard patterns, I think he could be excellent if he gets that opportunity. I do want to swing it a little bit more to the East Coast. Washington Redskins at the New England Patriots. Alex Smith era begins again for the Redskins. They think he's a better player than who they got rid of in Kirk Cousins. He's definitely an upgrade when you look at performance on the field. When it comes to media, darling, I still think that Kirk Cousins, for whatever reason, was given more media love than a guy like Alex Smith, who lost his job to Colin Kaepernick for the 49ers, a guy who came out of the University of Utah and out of Helix High School in San Diego, California, Reggie Bush's teammate. But he can't get love nowhere he goes, because even though he's going to be the starter now in Washington, there's still some talk that some of the old-timers wanted Cousins to keep them out of the playoffs for yet another year. Big, your thoughts?
Well, Alex Smith had a career season last year in Kansas City,
but he's gone,
and it was time for him to move on. Because they invested in this young quarterback, Johnson. And I think having a new lease on life in Washington will benefit him. When you look at the division that he's in, it has a division with two good quarterbacks in it. You have the Eagles, and you can split Winston or Foles.
Yeah.
You have, Cowboys with Prescott. The division is Eli Manning.
Yeah.
So it gives him an opportunity to move in and be an upper echelon quarterback.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, Big C. I want to touch on Tampa at Miami. Talk about two teams. They have the most beautiful areas to live in, but as far as their football hasn't been what a lot of people expected to be. Tannehill, who hasn't appeared in the game since December 2016, he's expected to return. The Buccaneers, meanwhile, looking to get their offense in order, starting with quarterback Winston facing 3-game suspension. Winston not being there might be the best thing for him because you don't have to get beaten up in the first 3 weeks of the season. He can come in and stay healthy down the stretch for Tampa because they were probably going to go 1-2 at best in their first 3 games. But tonight's preseason game, anything we can learn, Big C, that we haven't already seen?
Well, it's up to Jameis Winston. What can he learn from what he's done in the past, Charlton, what has gotten him in this position? Is this going to be a growing moment for him, or is this going to be a cancerous moment for him to start hitting him out of the NFL? Ryan Tannehill, it has a mobility problem. He wants to run too much.
Yeah.
And that's where his injuries have come from. He's not been willing to stay in the pocket, Charlton, and that's what you need in the NFL. If he was a black quarterback, everybody said, well, he's highly athletic.
Yeah.
But he's a white quarterback who keeps running and keeps getting hurt.
Yeah. I think it's sometimes when I just look at that number and I go back to Tyrod Taylor. Here's a guy at Buffalo that got them to the playoffs for the first time in a decade. And they said, you know what? Let's get rid of that guy and then keep the guy that threw 5 interceptions in the first quarter. That just doesn't make any sense to me. So I know there's a shorter opportunity to make mistakes for the people, for the men of color. That's a fact it is. I want to go New Orleans at Jacksonville. Looking to improve upon last season's 10-6 mark for Jacksonville. Hoping to get back to the playoffs. Blake Bortles, the departure of Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns off his offensive side of the ball. I tell you, this team with their running back that came out of LSU, if they can establish their ground game, I really like Jacksonville's chances, even though they could really use an upgrade in the uniform look. Big C, they have some of the ugliest uniforms, in my opinion only. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they also going to have to groom a new tight end. Mercedes Lewis is now up in Green Bay, who had been there forever out of UCLA.
Yep.
So, he's going to have to find some new weapons. And so Blake Bortles is really going to have to, shorten that learning curve with the new talent around him this year and hope that Fournette can keep the offense intact until he can get up to speed.
Yeah. What do you think of their defensive side of the ball? I thought Ramsey was pretty dominant. Or maybe not Deion Sanders quality, but surely he wants to be. And he talked about not only were they going to New England, but they were going to win the blankety-blank and go to the Super Bowl. And they were almost there with a 10-point lead until the New England officials decided, wait a minute, we're behind. And we've seen it happen before in New England, whether it's the tuck rule or somebody was really out of bounds when they were called inbounds and the replay didn't show in time. They all kind of favors showed up when they were just a quarter away from going to the Super Bowl. You think their defense is something they can lean on again this year, or would it be a little bit of luck from last year, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they have a tremendous defensive line led by Khalil Mack, who is one of the most dominant defensive tackles in the NFL. But you can't have your quarterback out there crying,
right.
Not in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
That lets the team know that, hey, we don't have a chance because he's scared.
Yeah.
He's out there crying. I go back to the movie Major League, you know, with not Major League, but it was a movie that Tom Hanks did when he was coaching the ladies baseball team. Yeah. And he's like, there's no crying in baseball. There's definitely no crying in the NFL.
Yeah.
So League of Their Own was a movie with Tom Hanks.
League of Their Own was the great Tom Hanks. We know he's made a lot of people laugh over the years, but I think that team down in Jacksonville has a chance to make some more noise this year. I don't know if it's NFL ready with their offense only being able to run the ball, but even Bortles had a decent game against New England last year. I don't see that happening back to back. I want to swing it to the great state of Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh at Philadelphia, defending Super Bowl champions, take the field for the fourth time since hosting the Lombardi Trophy. Two teams that have been consistently Super Bowl teams out of the great state of Pennsylvania. Your thoughts on tonight with the Foles or Wentz could set out this preseason opener because of injuries, but just seeing Philadelphia and Green Bay must mean a lot for the great people of Pennsylvania. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know that Wentz won't play at all. Most likely Roethlisberger will not even take a snap in this game, Charlton, because they drafted Rudolph. They had Dobbs from the year before, and they also had Landry on the roster.
Yeah.
So they have three young quarterbacks that they're trying to make a decision with. In Philadelphia, Stanton will most likely get the majority of the snaps at the quarterback position, Charlton.
Yeah.
But, you know, this is a game where you don't put much emphasis on because it's an in-state rivalry, and you know that you're getting up for the start of the regular season if you're either one of those teams.
Yeah. If you look at the final game, we'll cover Big C. Chicago at Cincinnati, up in the Natty. Ohio has a lot to be grateful for this year. And with LeBron James being gone, maybe Cincinnati can give some hope to that region of the country that's going to be still smarting from not having King James there playing a basketball for them in Cleveland. Cincinnati is not going to go far as playoffs, but they're still a team that's been nipping at the bud of the playoffs. Your thoughts on Chicago going into Cincinnati, Big C?
Well, this is a do-or-die season for Andy Dalton, Charlton. He's been up and down. This is the one season he needs to be up in his career. I mean, he hasn't been the same since Mohamed Sanu left and went to Atlanta, you know, because he's had just A.J. Green that people have been able to double up on. But that defense is really going to have to figure out what can they do in Cincinnati this year, Charlton.
Yep.
Because they will only go as far as that defense takes them.
That's true, Big C. So I want to ask you, we've covered the NFL games. There's more covering on Friday. But going into the first full week of preseason play, the NFL has two major rule changes, the catch rule and the helmet rule. I know we want to keep everybody safe. I like the helmet rule, just keeping people away from the neck. The catch rule, just give me your thoughts. We've seen so many plays. We talked about Darius Bryant. That was really a catch against Green Bay in the playoffs. Wasn't a catch if you believe what you saw in the replay, but if you saw your eyes, believe your eyes, it was a catch. Your thoughts on those two rule changes, the catch and the helmet rule, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, mainly these rule changes are to benefit offense, trying to get more scoring going, you know, in the NFL because the games have been lackluster. And so this is what this is there to do. You know, the helmet rule is a tedious rule, Charlton, because you're trying to change players in a matter of months from what they've done their entire life.
Yeah.
We've always known what a catch was.
Yep.
But hitting in football has always been hitting.
Yeah.
And we have offensive players who attack defensive players also, Charlton, with that helmet.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a lot of flags thrown this preseason.
Yeah, we know that's going to happen. We just hope for the best out of all the sports. Big C, I'm really glad that you had the hip surgery done, and now you can get around, and it's amazing. I know you got it done before the start of football season. That shows how committed you are to football. Didn't want to lose a day off, of course, when the football kicks off the pigskin. In fact, I think I know why football is your favorite sport, because of the pigskin. Have you ever tried deep fried football, Big C, just out of boredom?
well, prior to getting to the football stage, yes, I have, Charlton. I've had a lot of deep fried pigskin.
I understand. Well, I look forward to a lot of good things happening in the sports universe. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bundini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, and rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, there's been kind of this myth this year that's been debunked in Major League Baseball. It's always been said if you go out and win the home run derby in Major League Baseball the All-Star Week, is that you're in a slump the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Well, Bryce Harper has changed that around, Charlton. Winning that home run derby, Charlton.
Yeah.
he has been hitting 367 in the national lineups, Charlton.
Yeah.
And they've been above 500 during that time.
Well, I tell you what, we love to see if he can continue that, but there's no way he's worth the $400 million. That maybe someone got to those pitchers and said, hey, wait a minute, you know how much money if you let him make $400 million, maybe other guys can make $300 million. I still believe we'll see what happens as we get into the playoff if he's still batting over the 300 clip. And speaking of batting over the 300 clip, every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. Follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911. Because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.